Ferrari chairman doubles down on his statements about Lewis and Charles. Toto's big decision could open the door for Horner's return, and all the latest F1 news. What happens when a championship frontrunner watches their title dreams crumble in real time? Oscar Piastri just gave us the most brutally honest answer you'll ever hear from a Formula One driver, and the implications for McLaren's season are staggering. Picture this: you're leading the championship by 34 points. Your teammate is struggling. Victory seems inevitable. Then suddenly, everything falls apart. That's exactly what happened to Oscar Piastri, and his raw admission about the collapse reveals something deeper about the psychological warfare of modern Formula One. The numbers tell a devastating story. After the Dutch Grand Prix, Piastri held that commanding 34-point lead over his McLaren teammate Lando Norris. Fast forward to today, and he's trailing by 24 points with just 3 races remaining. That's a 58-point swing in the wrong direction. In championship terms, that's not just a collapse, it's a complete reversal of fortune that would make even the most experienced drivers question everything they thought they knew about racing. But here's where Piastri's story becomes fascinating. Instead of making excuses or pointing fingers, the young Australian delivered one of the most candid assessments we've seen from any driver this season. His words were simple but devastating. There's just a lot of things going wrong at the moment. Think about the weight of that admission. This isn't a rookie struggling to find his feet or a veteran past his prime making peace with mediocrity. This is a championship contender at the peak of his powers, acknowledging that forces beyond his control are derailing his title bid. It's the kind of honesty that rarely surfaces in Formula One's carefully managed media environment. The timeline of Piastri's downfall reads like a masterclass in how quickly momentum can shift in elite motorsport. His last podium came at Monza, which now feels like a lifetime ago. Since then, we've witnessed a retirement in Azerbaijan, a 4th-place finish in Singapore, and 3 consecutive 5th-place results. Each race has chipped away at his championship aspirations like water eroding stone. The Brazil weekend perfectly encapsulated Piastri's recent struggles. During practice sessions, everything clicked. The car felt right, the pace was there, and confidence was building. Then reality struck. The sprint crash over a wet curb wasn't just bad luck, it was emblematic of how fine margins can destroy championship campaigns. That same curb claimed 2 other drivers, but timing is everything in Formula One, and Piastri's timing has been catastrophically wrong. What makes this situation even more intriguing is how Piastri is processing these setbacks mentally. Rather than dwelling on the negatives, he's clinging to what he calls flashes of really strong pace. This isn't denial, it's strategic thinking. He recognizes that raw speed hasn't abandoned him, but consistency has become his enemy. The psychological aspect of championship battles is often overlooked by casual observers, but it's absolutely crucial for understanding what's happening here. When a driver starts questioning whether their luck has turned, when they begin anticipating problems before they occur, performance inevitably suffers. Piastri seems acutely aware of this trap, which might be his salvation. His technical assessment of the Brazil weekend reveals another layer to his struggles. The car setup that worked beautifully on Friday somehow became problematic as the weekend progressed. In Formula One, where margins are measured in thousandths of seconds, these setup windows can make the difference between championship glory and bitter disappointment. The collision with Norris during the Austin sprint adds another dimension to this story. Teammate relationships in high-pressure championship scenarios are notoriously fragile. When both drivers retire from the same incident, it raises questions about team dynamics, communication, and whether McLaren can effectively manage 2 title contenders simultaneously. Piastri's engineering background shows in how he analyzes these problems. He doesn't just see bad luck, he identifies systemic issues. The car's behavior changing throughout race weekends, set up directions that don't suit his driving style, and the compound effect of multiple small problems creating larger disasters. This analytical approach might be exactly what he needs to turn things around. The timing of this collapse couldn't be worse for Piastri's long-term prospects. With only 3 races remaining and 83 points still available, mathematical possibilities exist, but psychological momentum has shifted decisively toward Norris. In championship battles, confidence is often more valuable than raw pace, and right now, Norris has both. What's particularly striking about Piastri's situation is how it mirrors broader themes in modern Formula One. The sport has become so competitive that tiny advantages compound into massive gaps. One bad weekend can trigger a spiral that's almost impossible to reverse. The mental game has become as important as the physical one, and managing adversity is now a core skill for any championship contender. McLaren finds themselves in an unusual position. They have 2 drivers theoretically capable of winning the championship, but one is surging while the other struggles. Team orders become a consideration, resource allocation becomes political, and every strategic decision carries championship implications. It's the kind of problem most teams would love to have, but it's still a problem nonetheless. The broader Formula One community is watching this unfold with fascination. Piastri's honest assessment stands in stark contrast to the usual corporate speak that dominates driver interviews. His willingness to acknowledge that a lot of things are going wrong, while maintaining belief in his underlying pace, shows remarkable maturity for someone so young. Looking ahead, Piastri's championship hopes aren't mathematically dead, but they're on life support. The challenge now becomes whether he can translate those flashes of really strong pace into consistent race-winning performances. With 3 races remaining, he needs everything to go perfectly while hopping his teammates' stumbles. In Formula One, stranger things have happened, but they don't happen often. The real question isn't whether Piastri can win this year's championship. It's whether this experience will make him stronger for future battles. Champions are often forged in the crucible of near misses and heartbreaking defeats. How he responds to this adversity might define the next phase of his career. His brutal honesty suggests he understands exactly what's at stake, and sometimes that understanding is the first step toward redemption. What just happened at Ferrari has sent shockwaves through the Formula One world, and honestly, it might be the most explosive drama we've seen all season. When a team chairman publicly calls out his drivers and tells them to talk less, you know things have gone seriously wrong behind the scenes. The Brazilian Grand Prix was supposed to be Ferrari's chance to close the gap in the Constructors' Championship. Instead, it turned into a complete disaster that exposed cracks in one of motorsport's most prestigious teams. Both Lewis Hamilton and Charles Leclerc crashed out of the race, leaving Ferrari with just 6 points when 58 were available. That's not just disappointing, that's catastrophic for a team with championship aspirations. But here's where it gets really interesting. John Elkann, Ferrari's chairman, didn't hold back in his post-race comments. He praised the mechanics for their lightning-fast pit stops and acknowledged the engineers working tirelessly to improve the car. Then came the bombshell that has everyone talking. He said the rest of the team wasn't up to par and specifically called out the drivers, telling them they need to focus on driving and talk less in the media. Now, when you're paying Lewis Hamilton reportedly $2.5 million per race weekend, those are fighting words. Hamilton, a 7-time world champion, joined Ferrari with massive expectations. Fans dreamed of seeing the sport's most successful driver behind the wheel of its most iconic car. Instead, we're witnessing what Hamilton himself has called a nightmare. The timing couldn't be worse for Hamilton's reputation. Throughout his incredible career spanning over 18 years, he's been synonymous with wins and podiums. The prospect of completing an entire season with Ferrari without a single podium finish would be unprecedented for a driver of his caliber. That's not just disappointing, that's historically shocking. Former Formula One driver Robert Dornbos didn't mince words when analyzing the situation. He pointed out that Ferrari is essentially transferring millions to Hamilton every weekend without seeing the returns they expected. That's a brutal assessment, but when you look at the numbers, it's hard to argue with the logic. Ferrari invested heavily in Hamilton, banking on his experience and winning mentality to push them over the edge. So far, that investment isn't paying dividends. What makes this situation even more complex is the response from other voices in the paddock. Former world champion Jenson Button suggested that maybe Elkann should lead by example, while analyst Karan Chandhok blamed the car's lack of speed rather than driver performance. These differing opinions highlight just how divided the Formula One community is on where the blame should fall. The psychological impact on Hamilton can't be understated. Here's a driver who's conquered every major milestone in Formula One, from his first championship with McLaren to his dominant years with Mercedes. The transition to Ferrari was supposed to be the cherry on top of an already legendary career. Instead, he's publicly admitting to living in a nightmare while facing criticism about his value to the team. Hamilton's response showed his championship mentality shining through despite the circumstances. He acknowledged the challenging situation while promising to bounce back stronger. That resilience has defined his career, but even the strongest competitors have breaking points when results consistently fall short of expectations. The broader implications for Ferrari extend far beyond this season, with major regulation changes coming next year, including new power unit specifications. The team is banking on a complete reset. Dornbos emphasized that Ferrari needs to deliver what he called a cannon of an engine to change their fortunes. Without significant improvements, both Hamilton and Charles Leclerc will continue facing questions about their ability to deliver results. Leclerc finds himself in an interesting position throughout this controversy. As Ferrari's homegrown talent, he's somewhat insulated from criticism compared to Hamilton. However, his own results haven't been significantly better, which complicates the narrative about where responsibility lies for Ferrari's struggles. The financial aspect adds another layer to this story. When you're investing millions in a driver, every point matters exponentially. Ferrari's current predicament means they're essentially burning money while watching competitors pull away in the standings. That's unsustainable for any organization, regardless of their prestige or history. Looking ahead, the pressure on Hamilton and Ferrari will only intensify. Every remaining race becomes an opportunity to silence critics or fuel more speculation about the partnership's future. Hamilton needs strong performances not just for points, but to justify his massive salary and restore confidence in his abilities. The championship fight continues around them, making Ferrari's struggles even more painful to watch. While other teams battle for victories and podium positions, Ferrari finds itself fighting just to score meaningful points. That's not where anyone expected to see the prancing horse at this stage of the season. Ferrari's success in other racing categories, particularly their World Endurance Championship triumphs, makes their Formula One struggles even more puzzling. They've proven capable of building winning cars and executing successful strategies in other series, which raises questions about what's specifically going wrong in their Formula One program. The coming weeks will be crucial for determining whether this public criticism serves as motivation or creates additional pressure that hurts performance. Hamilton's track record suggests he responds well to adversity, but this situation presents unique challenges given the very public nature of the criticism. Ultimately, Ferrari's championship hopes for this season appear to be fading, but the real test will be whether they can use this disappointment as fuel for next year's campaign. With major technical changes on the horizon, they have an opportunity to start fresh and prove that their investment in Hamilton was worth the massive financial commitment. The drama at Ferrari reminds us why Formula One remains the most compelling sport in the world. where million-dollar decisions and championship dreams can crumble in a single weekend. What if I told you that one man's investment decision could single-handedly rewrite the entire valuation landscape of Formula One? This isn't just another business deal, folks. This is potentially the most significant ownership shakeup we've seen in motorsport history. And it all centers around one Austrian genius who's about to cash in big time. Toto Wolff, the mastermind behind Mercedes' dominant era in Formula One, is reportedly preparing to sell a portion of his ownership stake in what could be a deal worth hundreds of millions of dollars. But here's the kicker that nobody saw coming. This transaction might value the Mercedes F1 team at an astronomical $6 billion, completely obliterating every previous record in the sport. Now let me break down why this matters so much more than just another rich guy getting richer. Wolff isn't just any team owner. He's been the architect of one of the most successful dynasties in Formula One history. Under his leadership, Mercedes has captured 8 consecutive Constructors' Championships and 7 Drivers' Championships, transforming the team from a decent midfield contender into an absolute powerhouse that redefined what success looks like in this sport. The numbers behind this potential deal are absolutely mind-blowing. We're talking about a mid-single-digit percentage stake that could net Wolff around $300 million. To put that in perspective, that's just a tiny slice of his estimated $2 billion net worth from his Mercedes investment alone. Think about that for a moment. This man's ownership stake in a single racing team is worth more than most Fortune 500 companies. But here's where it gets really interesting from a business perspective. Wolff originally invested 30% into Mercedes back in 2013, when the entire team was valued at just $165 million. Fast forward 13 years, and we're looking at a potential $6 billion valuation. That represents an increase of roughly $1.7 billion in value for Wolff's stake alone. This isn't just good business. This is the kind of return that investment legends dream about. The structure of this deal is particularly clever and reveals Wolff's strategic thinking. He's not selling his stake in the team directly, but rather divesting a portion of his holding company called Motorsports Investment Limited, which is registered in Guernsey. This means that while someone else gets a piece of the financial pie, Wolff maintains complete operational control. His voting power remains unchanged. He stays as both CEO and team principal, and for all practical purposes, nothing changes in how Mercedes operates day to day. This move comes at a fascinating time for Formula One valuations. Just 2 months ago, we saw McLaren achieve a $5 billion valuation when MSP Capital Partners sold their 33% stake. That deal was already considered groundbreaking, representing a nearly tenfold return on MSP's original investment from 2020. But if these Mercedes numbers are accurate, we're looking at valuations that make even that McLaren deal look modest by comparison. What's driving these incredible valuations? Formula One has experienced an unprecedented explosion in global popularity over the past decade. The sport has successfully cracked the American market, digital viewership has skyrocketed, and new revenue streams keep emerging. Teams are no longer just racing organizations. They've become global entertainment brands with massive commercial potential. Mercedes exemplifies this transformation perfectly. Their 2024 financial results show the highest revenues of any Formula One team, with income reaching $858 million. That's a 16% increase from the previous year. More importantly, they posted a healthy profit of $158 million, proving that success on track translates directly to financial performance. The timing of Wolff's decision to partially cash out makes perfect sense from multiple angles. First, he's essentially taking some profits off the table after an incredible run of success. Second, Formula One valuations are at historic highs, making this an optimal time to realize gains. Third, by maintaining control while bringing in new financial partners, he's positioning Mercedes for continued growth and investment. The identity of the potential buyer adds another layer of intrigue to this story. While officially unconfirmed, sources suggest that George Kurtz, the CEO of cybersecurity giant CrowdStrike, is linked to these discussions. Interestingly, CrowdStrike has issued a statement clarifying that they have no intention of taking an ownership stake in the Mercedes team itself. But this carefully worded denial doesn't rule out investment in Wolff's holding company. This distinction is crucial because it highlights the sophisticated financial engineering at play here. By structuring the deal through the holding company, all parties can achieve their objectives. Wolff gets liquidity, the buyer gets exposure to Formula One's growth, and Mercedes maintains operational independence. From Mercedes' perspective as a manufacturer, having Wolff realize some gains while staying fully committed sends a powerful signal. It demonstrates that their Formula One investment isn't just about marketing and brand building. It's generating real, substantial returns. This could influence other manufacturers considering entry into the sport or existing teams looking to expand their operations. The broader implications for Formula One are equally significant. These valuation levels suggest that team ownership is transitioning from a passion project for wealthy enthusiasts to a legitimate institutional investment opportunity. We're seeing private equity firms, sovereign wealth funds, and tech billionaires all eyeing Formula One assets as serious additions to their portfolios. This trend has important consequences for the sport's future development. Higher valuations mean more capital available for research and development, better facilities, and potentially more competitive racing. However, it also raises questions about whether Formula One might become too commercialized or lose some of its traditional character. For Wolff personally, this deal represents the culmination of one of the most successful business decisions in sports history. His transformation of Mercedes from a struggling team to a global powerhouse has created enormous value not just for himself, but for everyone involved in the organization. The fact that he can now partially monetize that success while maintaining full operational control is a testament to both his business acumen and his irreplaceable value to the team. Looking ahead, this transaction could establish new benchmarks for Formula One team valuations and ownership structures. If Mercedes is indeed worth $6 billion, what does that mean for other successful teams like Red Bull or Ferrari? How will this influence the next round of ownership changes across the grid? The Mercedes deal under Wolff's leadership proves that Formula One team ownership can generate returns that rival the best investments in any sector. This isn't just about racing anymore. It's about building global entertainment brands that can deliver substantial financial performance alongside sporting success. And Toto Wolff has just shown everyone exactly how that's done. Is Max Verstappen's championship reign finally over? With just 3 races left in the season and a massive 49-point deficit to overcome, the Red Bull star is staring down the barrel of his first championship loss since 2021. But here's the thing that'll shock you. According to Helmut Marko, Red Bull's motorsport advisor, this title fight wasn't lost in Brazil or Mexico like everyone thinks. The real damage happened months ago, and the reason will completely change how you see this season. Let me paint you the picture of just how dire things have become for Verstappen. After dominating Formula One for 3 straight seasons, the Dutch driver now finds himself in an almost impossible position. Lando Norris leads by 49 points with only 86 points still available across the final 3 race weekends. That's not just a mountain to climb, it's Mount Everest in a snowstorm. The mathematics are brutal and unforgiving. In Las Vegas this weekend, if Norris wins, Verstappen must finish second just to keep his slim hopes alive. Finish third, game over. The championship would be mathematically impossible. Even if Norris comes second, Verstappen needs 5th or better to stay in the fight, but he'd be hanging by a thread with just a single point buffer. But here's where it gets really interesting. While everyone's been talking about the recent races in Mexico and Brazil as the turning points, Helmut Marko has a completely different perspective. The veteran advisor, who's seen more championship battles than most people have had hot dinners, points to a very specific period where Red Bull lost their way. According to Marko, if this championship slips away from Verstappen, the blame doesn't lie with their recent struggles. Instead, he's pointing his finger at the period immediately after the Imola Grand Prix. That's when, in his words, little worked for Red Bull across half a dozen races. Think about that for a moment. We're talking about a stretch where the team that had been utterly dominant suddenly couldn't find their rhythm. During those crucial races after Imola, Verstappen managed just one podium finish across 7 races. For a driver who had been accustomed to winning almost every weekend, this was a catastrophic drop in performance. While everyone was focused on McLaren's improvement and Norris finding his form, Red Bull was quietly hemorrhaging points race after race. The irony is almost cruel. Last season, it was Verstappen who delivered the killing blow to Norris's championship hopes at the Brazilian Grand Prix before wrapping up the title in Las Vegas. The tables have completely turned, and now it's Norris holding all the cards as they head to Sin City. What makes this situation even more fascinating is Marko's admission about what needs to happen for Verstappen to have any realistic chance. He's brutally honest. Something needs to happen to Norris. A retirement, a collision, some kind of misfortune. Without that, Marko concedes they have no chance of retaining the World Championship. This level of honesty from someone so close to the Red Bull operation tells you everything about how they view their current predicament. They're not banking on their own performance to turn things around. They're hopping for external circumstances to intervene. The recent Brazil weekend perfectly encapsulates Red Bull's season-long struggles. Verstappen qualified a shocking fourth for the sprint race, then suffered a nightmare in qualifying for the main event, getting knocked out in Q1. The team scrambled overnight, making setup changes and installing a new engine, forcing Verstappen to start from the pit lane. What happened next was vintage Verstappen, a drive from dead last to the podium that reminded everyone why he's a 3-time world champion. But even that heroic performance wasn't enough to prevent Norris from extending his championship lead. The McLaren driver outscored Verstappen by 13 points that weekend, adding to the 10-point swing from Mexico City. Marko does hold out some hope for the remaining circuits. He believes Las Vegas, with its fast passages and long straights, should theoretically favor Red Bull's package. But he's also realistic about Qatar and Abu Dhabi, acknowledging that those medium-speed corner circuits should suit McLaren better. However, there's a caveat that reveals just how unpredictable modern Formula One has become. Marko notes that the days when certain circuits automatically favored specific cars are largely over. Form on the day, setup windows, and countless variables now play bigger roles than fundamental car characteristics. This unpredictability might be Red Bull's only real hope. If they can nail the setup in Las Vegas and Verstappen can produce one of his special performances, while Norris struggles, then perhaps this championship fight could have one final twist. The psychological aspect cannot be ignored either. Norris is in a position he's never been in before, leading a championship fight with just 3 races to go. The pressure is immense, even if the points advantage suggests he's cruising to his first title. Meanwhile, Verstappen has nothing to lose. He's already written off by many, which could free him up to take the kind of risks that might just pay off. What's particularly striking about Marko's analysis is his overall positivity despite the dire situation. He describes their current position as positive because they managed such a significant turnaround during the season that they found themselves back in championship contention. This perspective shift is crucial from Red Bull's viewpoint. Even being in this fight represents an achievement given where they were mid-season. The reality check is sobering though. Even if everything goes perfectly for Red Bull in Las Vegas, they'd still need Norris to have serious problems in at least one of the remaining races. That's not a championship-winning strategy, that's hopping for miracles. As we head into this final stretch, remember that we're potentially witnessing the end of an era. Verstappen's dominance, which seemed unshakable just months ago, could be coming to an end. The sport is witnessing a generational shift, with Norris representing the new guard finally breaking through. But if there's one thing we've learned about Max Verstappen, it's never to write him off completely. He's produced magic when his back has been against the wall before. Whether he has one more miracle left in him remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: he won't go down without the fight of his life. What happens when a championship frontrunner goes from hero to zero in just a few weeks? Today we're diving deep into one of Formula One's most dramatic mid-season collapses, and the psychological warfare happening inside one of the sport's top teams. Just months ago, Oscar Piastri looked unstoppable. The young Australian had surged ahead of his teammate by over 30 points, racking up victories and podium finishes like clockwork. But then something changed. The wins stopped coming. The crashes started piling up, and suddenly the hunter became the hunted. So what went wrong? According to legendary Formula One commentator Martin Brundle, there are 5 specific reasons behind Piastri's spectacular fall from grace. But here's the twist: Piastri himself has revealed a 6th factor that might be the most damaging of all, and it involves his own team working against him. Let's start with the numbers because they tell a shocking story. After winning in the Netherlands and building what seemed like an insurmountable lead, Piastri has gone 5 straight races without a podium finish. 5 races where everything that could go wrong did go wrong. His teammate Lando Norris, meanwhile, has flipped the script entirely, going from distant second to championship favorite. The swing has been brutal. From being 34 points ahead to trailing by 24 points, that's a 58-point turnaround in the space of just a few race weekends. In Formula One terms, that's not just bad luck. That's a complete systematic breakdown. So what exactly happened? Martin Brundle, who's seen plenty of championship battles during his time as both a driver and commentator, believes he's identified the perfect storm of factors that destroyed Piastri's title hopes. First up, it's all in his head. The mental side of racing is absolutely crucial at this level, and once doubt creeps in, it spreads like a virus. When you're used to winning and suddenly nothing goes right, that confidence can evaporate overnight. Every mistake gets magnified. Every near miss becomes a crisis of faith. Second, pure bad luck. Sometimes in motorsport, the dice just won't roll your way. Mechanical failures, safety cars at the wrong time, other drivers making contact with you. None of it's your fault, but it all counts the same on the championship table. Racing can be ruthlessly unfair, and Piastri has been on the wrong end of fortune recently. Third, setup problems with the car. Formula One cars are incredibly sensitive machines. Change one small setting and the whole balance can shift. If your car isn't working the way you expect it to, you're fighting a losing battle before you even get to the first corner. When the car doesn't feel right under you, everything else becomes exponentially harder. Fourth, track-specific issues. Different circuits suit different driving styles and car characteristics. Some drivers excel at high-speed tracks, others prefer tight and technical layouts. If the recent calendar has featured circuits that don't play to your strengths, you're immediately at a disadvantage before the lights go out. And fifth, the Norris factor. Having a teammate in red-hot form creates its own pressure. When your garage neighbor is consistently outperforming you, it creates internal tension and forces you to take bigger risks to keep up. Sometimes trying too hard is worse than not trying hard enough. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Piastri himself has hinted at a 6th reason, and it cuts to the heart of team politics in Formula One. The incident he's referring to happened at Monza, where McLaren made a controversial team order decision that still resonates today. During that Italian Grand Prix, Piastri was running ahead of Norris when a slow pit stop dropped his teammate behind him. The team then ordered Piastri to give the position back, essentially sacrificing his race result for his teammate's benefit. Piastri reluctantly complied, but you could hear the frustration in his voice over the radio. Now, weeks later, Piastri has admitted this decision affected him more than anyone realized. Speaking candidly, he revealed that the Monza situation was part of what led to his disastrous weekend in Azerbaijan, where his championship challenge effectively fell apart. Think about the psychology of that moment. You're fighting for a world championship, giving everything you have, and then your own team asks you to sacrifice your position for your main rival. Even if you understand the reasoning, even if you're a team player, that has to hurt. It plants a seed of doubt about whether your own team truly believes in your championship chances. The Azerbaijan weekend that followed was, in Piastri's own words, the worst of his entire racing career. Crashes in qualifying and the race, unforced errors, a complete loss of rhythm, everything that could go wrong did. But he's also called it potentially the most useful weekend he's ever had, because it forced him to confront some harsh truths about his approach. What's fascinating is how these momentum shifts work in Formula One. At the start of the season, Norris was the one struggling while Piastri looked composed and clinical. Then Piastri hit his stride and built that commanding lead. Now the pendulum has swung back to Norris, who's driving with the kind of confidence that comes from knowing everything is going your way. But here's the thing about momentum. It can shift again. With 3 race weekends remaining and 83 points still up for grabs, the mathematics still favor dramatic change. One mechanical failure for Norris combined with a strong result for Piastri could completely flip the championship on its head again. The upcoming tracks also play into this narrative. According to McLaren's team principal, the remaining circuits should suit Piastri's driving style better than the recent venues where he struggled. Sometimes in Formula One, it really is that simple. The right track at the right time can unlock a driver's potential again. What makes this situation even more compelling is how it reflects the broader pressures of modern Formula One. These drivers are incredibly young, dealing with massive pressure, global media attention, and internal team politics that can make or break careers. The fact that Piastri has been so open about the psychological impact of recent events shows remarkable maturity. The championship battle also highlights how fine the margins are at the top level of motorsport. The difference between dominating and struggling can be measured in tenths of seconds, in single setup changes, in split-second decisions during wheel-to-wheel combat. When everything aligns, you look invincible. When it doesn't, you can appear hopeless, even though your underlying speed hasn't changed. Looking at the bigger picture, this kind of mid-season collapse isn't unprecedented in Formula One history. Champions have been made and broken by much smaller margins than what we're seeing here. The drivers who bounce back from these setbacks often become stronger for the experience. Whether Piastri can engineer one final momentum shift remains to be seen. The mathematical possibility exists, but he'll need everything to go perfectly while hopping his teammates' stumbles. In a sport where anything can happen, and usually does, those odds might be better than they appear. What we're witnessing is Formula One at its most psychologically brutal, where talent alone isn't enough, where team dynamics matter as much as lap times, and where championship dreams can evaporate in the space of a few crucial weekends. The question now is whether this young Australian has the mental strength to fight back when everything seems lost. Picture this. Formula One's most iconic team just threw their superstar drivers under the bus in front of the entire world. Lewis Hamilton, a 7-time world champion, and Charles Leclerc, Ferrari's golden boy, were just told to shut up and drive by their own team president. But here's the kicker. This might be the most damaging thing Ferrari could have done to their championship hopes. What happened at the Brazilian Grand Prix has sent shockwaves through the Formula One paddock, and today we're diving deep into why Ferrari's public criticism of their drivers might be the biggest strategic blunder of the season. We'll uncover the real story behind those explosive comments, explore what industry insiders are saying behind closed doors, and reveal why this could mark a turning point that destroys Ferrari's championship ambitions. But first, let's set the scene. The Sao Paulo Grand Prix was supposed to be another opportunity for Ferrari to close the gap in the Constructors' Championship. Instead, it became a nightmare that exposed the cracks in one of motorsport's most legendary teams. Both Ferrari drivers suffered DNFs, did not finish, meaning 0 points for the team when they desperately needed every single point to climb back up the standings. Charles Leclerc became an innocent victim when Oscar Piastri and rookie Kimi Antonelli collided, taking out the Monegasque driver immediately. Meanwhile, Lewis Hamilton's race was compromised early when he hit the back of Franco Colapinto's Alpine, causing floor damage that eventually forced his retirement. Two freak incidents, neither driver's fault, yet somehow this became the catalyst for an unprecedented public attack. Here's where the story takes a dramatic turn. While Ferrari's Formula One team was licking their wounds in Brazil, their endurance racing division was celebrating championship glory in Bahrain. The contrast couldn't have been starker, and Ferrari president John Elkann used this moment to deliver what can only be described as a brutal assessment of his Formula One operation. Speaking at an event in Milan, Elkann's words cut deep. He praised the mechanics for their pit stop excellence and acknowledged the engineers' efforts to improve the car. But then came the hammer blow. He declared that everything else was not up to standard and specifically called out his drivers, saying they needed to focus on driving and talk less. The message was clear. Ferrari wins when united, and right now, the drivers weren't playing their part. But wait, there's a massive problem with this narrative, and industry experts are calling it out. Bernie Collins, former McLaren performance engineer and Aston Martin strategy chief, didn't hold back in her response. She referenced an old Formula One garage saying that perfectly captures this situation. The beatings will continue until morale improves. Her question was simple yet devastating. What exactly has Ferrari gained from publicly humiliating their drivers? Let's examine the facts that Elkann conveniently ignored. Both Hamilton and Leclerc entered that Brazilian Grand Prix with identical goals, maximum points for themselves and the team. These aren't aligned by accident. In Formula One, driver success and team success go hand in hand. Neither driver intentionally crashed out. Neither driver made strategic errors. They were victims of racing incidents beyond their control. Collins made a crucial point about the nature of Formula One drivers. They're fundamentally competitive individuals who want to win above all else. That's exactly what you want in a championship fight. The idea that Hamilton and Leclerc aren't committed to Ferrari's success is not just wrong. It's insulting to two drivers who have consistently delivered points throughout a challenging season. Here's what makes this situation even more absurd. Ferrari hasn't won a championship since 2008. That's 17 years of drought. Neither Hamilton nor Leclerc can be blamed for this extended period of underachievement. Hamilton only joined Ferrari this season, while Leclerc has been carrying the team's hopes for years without the machinery to challenge for titles consistently. The real issue at Ferrari runs much deeper than driver performance. Collins highlighted something that gets to the heart of Ferrari's problems. When you look at the massive investment Ferrari makes compared to their championship returns, something fundamental is broken in the system. Team principal Fred Vasseur is implementing changes, but progress has been painfully slow. Sky Sports pit lane reporter Ted Kravitz also jumped to the driver's defense, pointing out a glaring contradiction in Elkann's criticism. The very drivers being blamed for talking too much are the same ones who have been consistently scoring points and keeping Ferrari competitive in the Constructors' Championship. Without Hamilton and Leclerc's performances, Ferrari would be in an even worse position. Kravitz revealed something that completely undermines Elkann's argument. Ferrari's car has a fundamental flaw that even their Belgium upgrade couldn't fix. They can't run the car low enough due to plank regulations, and the engineering team hasn't found a solution. So while the drivers are being criticized for speaking out about these issues, they're actually trying to help solve the very problems that are preventing Ferrari from winning races. The timing of Hamilton and Leclerc's social media responses tells its own story. Both drivers posted messages emphasizing their commitment to the team and their determination to keep pushing for improvement. These weren't defiant statements. They were damage control from professionals trying to maintain unity while dealing with public criticism from their own leadership. But here's where the psychology gets really interesting. Formula One is a sport where confidence and team morale can make the difference between winning and losing races. By publicly undermining his drivers, Elkann has potentially created a toxic environment right when Ferrari needs maximum performance from everyone involved. The beatings will continue until morale improves. Mentality that Collins referenced is exactly backwards from what successful Formula One teams need. Look at Red Bull during their dominant periods, or Mercedes during their championship runs. Leadership supported their drivers publicly while addressing issues privately. Ferrari has done the exact opposite. What's particularly frustrating for Ferrari fans is that this controversy comes at a crucial time. With 3 races remaining in the season, Ferrari still has a mathematical chance of finishing second in the Constructors' Championship. They're currently 4th, but only 36 points behind Mercedes in second place. In Formula One terms, that's still recoverable with strong performances. But Elkann's comments have created an unnecessary distraction exactly when Ferrari needs total focus. Instead of talking about setup improvements or race strategies, the narrative has shifted to internal politics and blame games. That's mental energy and media attention that could have been directed toward actually solving their technical problems. The broader implications extend beyond just this season. Hamilton chose Ferrari because he believed in their championship potential. Leclerc has remained loyal to the team through years of disappointment. Both drivers need to feel supported by leadership to perform at their maximum level. Public criticism doesn't motivate Formula One drivers. It creates doubt and resentment. Industry observers are already speculating about the long-term damage this could cause. Formula One is a small paddock where reputation matters enormously. Other teams will have taken note of how Ferrari treats their drivers, and this could impact their ability to attract top talent in the future. Ferrari's problem isn't their drivers talking too much. It's a leadership approach that deflects blame instead of taking responsibility. Championship-winning teams create environments where drivers feel empowered to provide feedback and push for improvements. They don't silence their most important assets when problems arise. The contrast with Ferrari's endurance racing success that Elkann praised makes this even more ironic. Those teams succeed because of collaboration and unity, exactly what Formula One needs but apparently lacks under current management. The solution isn't to muzzle Hamilton and Leclerc. It's to create the same collaborative culture that works in other Ferrari racing programs. As we head into the final races of the season, Ferrari faces a choice. They can continue down this path of public criticism and blame, or they can learn from their endurance racing success and build the united team culture that actually wins championships. The clock is ticking, and every point matters in their fight to finish second in the constructors' standings. The real tragedy here is that Ferrari has 2 exceptional drivers who want nothing more than to bring championship glory back to Maranello. Instead of supporting them through a challenging period, leadership chose public humiliation. That's not how you build championship-winning teams. That's how you destroy them from within. Hold on to your racing helmets, everyone, because something absolutely incredible just happened at Imola that nobody saw coming. Sergio Perez, The Mexican racing legend who disappeared from Formula One almost a year ago just made his shocking return to the cockpit, and you're not going to believe what he was driving. This isn't just any comeback story. This is the beginning of what could be the most dramatic transformation in modern Formula One history. Picture this. After months of silence and speculation, Perez suddenly emerges at the legendary Imola circuit, sliding into the driver's seat of a menacing all-black Ferrari. Not just any Ferrari, we're talking about a completely blacked-out SF23 that looked like something straight out of a racing thriller movie. The imagery alone was enough to send shockwaves through the Formula One community, but what this test represents goes so much deeper than just a photo opportunity. Let me paint the full picture of how we got here, because this story is absolutely wild from start to finish. Just 12 months ago, Sergio Perez was considered one of the top drivers on the grid, coming off a season where he finished second in the championship standings. He was Red Bull's golden boy, the perfect wingman to Max Verstappen, and seemingly had his future locked down. But then 2024 happened, and everything fell apart in the most spectacular fashion imaginable. The 2024 season was nothing short of catastrophic for Perez. We watched in real time as one of Formula One's most consistent performers completely crumbled under pressure. From second place in the championship to 8th place, that's not just a bad season, that's a career-threatening nosedive. The Mexican driver who had built his reputation on being unflappable suddenly couldn't find his rhythm anywhere. Qualifying sessions became nightmares, race weekends turned into damage control exercises, and eventually, the inevitable happened. Red Bull, the team that had stood by Perez through thick and thin, finally reached their breaking point. The mutual agreement to part ways wasn't just a professional decision. It was an acknowledgement that sometimes even the most talented drivers hit walls they can't break through. When the announcement came, Perez did something that surprised everyone. He said he needed time to step back to be with his family, to figure out what came next. For most drivers, that would have been the end of the story. Formula One is notoriously unforgiving to drivers who step away, and at 35 years old, Perez wasn't exactly in the prime demographic that teams usually chase. The paddock assumed he would fade into retirement, maybe take up a coaching role or become a pundit. Nobody expected what happened next. Enter Cadillac, the American automotive giant making their grand entrance into Formula One as the sport's 11th team. This wasn't just another team joining the grid. This was a statement that American motorsport was ready to take on the world's most prestigious racing series. And when they announced their driver lineup in August, jaws dropped across the racing world. Sergio Perez and Valtteri Bottas, two former race winners with combined decades of experience, would be leading Cadillac's charge into Formula One. This wasn't a rebuilding project with rookie drivers learning the ropes. This was a serious attempt to make an immediate impact, and choosing Perez sent a clear message about their ambitions. But here's where the story gets really interesting. Cadillac will be powered by Ferrari engines in their debut season, creating this fascinating partnership between American automotive ambition and Italian racing heritage. It's like watching two different racing philosophies come together, and today's test at Imola was the first real glimpse of how this collaboration might work. The choice of using a 2023 Ferrari SF23 for testing makes perfect sense when you understand the bigger picture. Perez needs to get reacquainted with Formula One machinery after a year away, and what better way than using equipment from the same manufacturer that will power his 2026 campaign. It's not just about getting back up to speed physically, though that's certainly important. It's about building relationships and understanding how this new partnership will function. And let's talk about the physical challenge for a moment, because Perez himself acknowledged the elephant in the room. After nearly a year away from Formula One cars, his body needs to readjust to forces that would crush most people. The G-forces, the neck strain, the precise muscle memory required to extract maximum performance, All of that needs to be rebuilt from scratch. His comment about wondering how many laps his neck could handle before getting destroyed shows both his humor and his realistic understanding of the challenge ahead. But this test represents so much more than physical conditioning. For the first time, Perez gets to work directly with Cadillac's mechanics and engineers in a real racing environment. These are the people who will determine his success in 2026, and building those relationships now could be the difference between a successful comeback and another disappointment. The Mexican driver seemed genuinely excited about this aspect of the test, talking about how important it is for everyone to start speaking the same language. In Formula One, the relationship between driver and team is everything. The best drivers aren't just fast, they're able to communicate exactly what the car needs to go faster, and that communication builds over time through countless hours of working together. What makes this comeback story even more compelling is Perez's confidence about reaching the podium with Cadillac. This isn't blind optimism. This is a driver with 39 career podiums and 6 race wins who understands what it takes to compete at the highest level. His track record speaks for itself. He's reached the podium with every team he's driven for except McLaren, and he clearly believes Cadillac has the potential to join that list. The timeline he's suggesting is fascinating too. He acknowledges that Cadillac will likely start at the back of the grid. That's just reality for any new team entering Formula One. But his vision of progressive improvement leading to podium contention in the near future shows he's thinking strategically about this comeback, not just hopping for miracles. There's something poetic about Perez making his return at Imola, a circuit steeped in Formula One history and known for being unforgiving to drivers who aren't completely on their game. If you can handle Imola after a year away, you can handle anything Formula One throws at you. The timing of this test also sends a strong message to the rest of the paddock. While other drivers are finishing their current seasons, Perez is already looking ahead, already building toward 2026. That kind of preparation and dedication suggests this comeback attempt is serious business. As we look toward 2026, this test at Imola might be remembered as the moment everything changed for both Sergio Perez and Cadillac. It's the beginning of what could be one of the most compelling storylines in recent Formula One history. A proven winner attempting to resurrect his career with an ambitious new team backed by American automotive power and Italian engineering excellence. The black Ferrari at Imola was just the beginning. The real story will be written when Cadillac takes the grid in 2026.